Towards the middle of 2024, just as Synergy was being developed, I dipped my toes into the beta-weight class with Teal Dangerous, a scaled-up version of my first and only combat robot Yellow and Dangerous. It was a huge learning curve and didn't perform too well, as I tried out various new systems at its first and only event, Adelaide Robot Havoc 7. Following that, I decided to iterate in the lower weight classes a while longer before returning to it, which I eventually did in late 2025. This video will go over the development and competitions of both of these bots up to the present day. So, Teal and Dangerous was intended to be an easy and relatively cheap entry into the beta-weight class, scaling up Yellow and Dangerous, using pretty large 2212 brushless motors for drive, 3mm aluminium weapon supports tied together by standoffs, which all sandwiched a printed TPU core chassis, which is a fairly direct translation from the 150-gram counterpart. The big experiment in Teal and Dangerous is the custom hub motor. I drew inspiration from Tyrant, a beetle I found on GrabCAD for the system, although in the interest of budget, I didn't quite make a true hub motor as I retained the original stator iron, and I also had the weapon made out of 12mm aluminium with a hardened steel impactor, as opposed to getting a hardened steel laser cut weapon. This experiment in hub motors had a second purpose outside of the robot, in hopefully teaching me important lessons in order to translate the system back to the ant-weight version in future. With that out of the way, here are the fights.
2, 1, fight! These bots are fast and furious. Both using spinners. Will they last 3 minutes? Who knows? Yes, they're noisy. You can hear those spinners start to spin up. There's a real hum. Right now, the other one might drop. We're on the edge. Is he moving? Let's give him the countdown. 10. 1, fight!
Teal Dangerous having trouble driving. Now is just running rings around. I'm very afraid the pins are to watch out for the pins. The pins are going to drop this randomly during the match. We've got a hit rod, it's going to drop in any second now. Chance here, almost made it there. And continue to free himself. How is Teal surviving this amazing work? A halfway time match, 1 minute 30 minutes. Well done, Scale.
Well, I certainly did learn some lessons in Adelaide. Unfortunately, some of those lessons could have been learnt and avoided earlier with better preparation. Having never programmed an ESC before, I had been hoping to receive guidance on the first day of the 2-day event, and while Ben of Team Panic did assist me in this, I had to forfeit my first match as I ran out of time. My weapon motor only spun up very slowly, and then right before my second fight I went in running the wrong mix profile in my transmitter, meaning the robot was basically uncontrollable. That's not the best against an omnidirectional, control-oriented opponent like Scale. Overnight, I attempted to improve the hub motor spin-up with ESC settings, but in doing so, my repetitive testing accidentally drained a battery completely flat. So it actually was working, and I just threw away 2 hours of sleep because the low battery performance of the hub motor I had mistaken as just bad performance in general. My use of aluminium uprights and an aluminium weapon was also shown to be a mistake when fighting scale, as both of them bent. I did get the drive working for the rumble, but overall this was not the best performance ever, and I resolved to iterate further in ants before returning. Now, jumping forward to late 2025, the list and price tag of the numerous changes I wanted to make to Teal was basically the same as starting over on a slightly different horizontal spinner archetype. I had become interested in trying out the undercutter and its forked variations. Additionally, I had become interested in wide drums, similar to Manta of numerous RoboGames trophies. Thus, a four-wheel drive modular undercutter drum became the goal, with the initial checkpoint of just the undercutter module to allow me to get into the arena and work out the flaws in the drive systems before committing to a specific modularity geometry and sinking even more money into the beetleweight. Drawing inspiration from older American beetleweights like Silk and Factor of Safety, and the well-decorated Silent Spring, the gist of the methods of attaching the modules seemed to be standoffs at the front connected to top and bottom plates, not dissimilar from most horizontals. Unfortunately, in order to finish the design in time for parts to arrive and be complete before the event, I had to rush the design towards the end, and as such, version 1 of this bot, which will be called Rift, lost its modular compatibility and just didn't look very cohesive either. Additionally, I also miscalculated the weights, leaving me unable to run my hardened steel fork configuration. I want to give thanks to Miles Sim, an extremely successful undercutter builder who informed my design of my own weapon stack, and thanks to PCBWay for manufacturing all of the custom components that make up that stack from a range of materials including alloy steel and 6061 aluminium. Everything was machined beautifully and within tolerances, especially the bearing inserts on the bead blasted and anodized pulley, which I specified with a drawing when ordering. Further, PCBWay actually emailed me during their quality control check to confirm whether this tiny little mark they left on the pulley was acceptable. That definitely impressed me, as I genuinely wouldn't have noticed if they hadn't told me. With some testing and ESC programming done before the event this time, Rift was off to Melbourne to fight in their end-of-year December event. Melbourne fight a purely round-robin tournament with 3 rounds and then tiebreakers to determine a winner, meaning every match of the 3 that I'd be guaranteed to fight in were critical. First up is Cut Through, a budget chainsaw overhead attack bot.
Do you want me to push you over? You can push. I don't have traction for that. Otherwise.
My lack of ground game really showed even before the match started, as I struggled to attempt to help push Cut Through to her start square. Despite that, I spun up to 25% throttle and quickly dispatched a fork with a wheel following it to give Rift a debut win. Rift's next opponent was OneOfUs. a Fingertech beta bar by Mk1, a local builder, which presented very little around the front of the robot to hit, apart from the weapon and the relatively unprotected uprights.
Yep. Good luck. Good strong. I don't think it can reach the Whoa! Yep. I got my product drive. Belt. Yeah. Oh, that's the weapon off. Oh no! Okay, we need to see movement. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Spinning up to higher speed now in order to win weapon-on-weapon engagements, I managed to completely fracture his left side upright, such that the belt lost tension and left him without a stable spin-up, and left me upside down. Unfortunately, a bad impact flipped me back over, whereupon...
What happened? Oh, the front fell off.
Yeah, that isn't meant to happen. I assumed this occurred due to a lack of Loctite on my part, as I was so used to the 150-gram robots, which I've never needed to use Loctite in. So I reattached it for the next match with Loctite. Otherwise undamaged, Rift was looking good, although the standoffs I was using as drive axles kept unscrewing themselves and leading to lost belts. Finally, rounding out my 3 round-robin fights, High Earth Orbit, or HEO, was selected as my final opponent. If I won this fight, I'd be into the tiebreakers. HEO was similarly a new bot from New South Wales, taking inspiration, I believe, from the Repeat Robotics PPKs.
Whoa, look at the wheel! Whoa! That's the drive side. Whoa! He's stuck in! Whoa! Someone just exploded. The weapons come out. Oh, wow. I think that's an unstick. Unstick. Woo! Hands off. Hands off. Right in. There we go. Unstuck.
Can you drive?
Jesse, I don't know if you're going to be able to drive.
Jesse, you have no drive.
Push me.
Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you both.
What happened? Oh, the front fell off.
So, turns out that the solution wasn't more Loctite. In actuality, I was missing a shim in the weapon stack, meaning that I couldn't preload the stack as intended, which led to the weapon binding when fully tightened. This had confused me all the while when I'd been constructing Rift, but I'd resolved to just leave it as tight as I could reasonably get it, where it could still spin up. This, luckily, is easy to rectify for the future, but it's unfortunate to have to learn it this way. Further, my side armor was printed in an uncommon orientation, similar to the so-called pickles on Puka and Son of Cram. While that may have contributed to the ease with which HEO dug into my sides, I believe the main flaw is simply in my TPU print settings, as there were other instances of delamination throughout the event, which simply shouldn't be happening like that if I were to print hotter. In terms of damage, my side was pretty destroyed, although the most costly being a bent shaft on the repeat compact. Luckily, replacement shafts are sold individually, so I may get some in future. That's all for the moment. However, the next event has been announced for Rift, since Robot Royale, my local Sydney event, has constructed a spacious beetleweight cage set to debut April 18th, so I've got a month to structurally overhaul and refine Rift to compete then. Until next time.